It all started with a random message I received in the middle of the night, but it turned out to be the key to a web of deception that had been surrounding me for years. I wasn't prepared for what I found out, but there was nowhere to go. Find out how it all turned out in the unexpected ending. The lake air hadn't even left my clothes when I stepped inside, cooler in hand, boots still wet from the dock. Our hallway was quiet, the fridge humming faintly in the kitchen, normal until I saw the envelope. It was resting neatly on the entry table, addressed to Allison. But what caught my eye wasn't the handwriting. It was how quickly she moved the second she saw me looking at it. She snatched it like a guilty teenager hiding cigarettes, smiled and said it was just junk mail. But my eyes had already caught the name. Orchid Fertility Institute. I didn't say a word, just watched her walk away like nothing had happened. As soon as she disappeared, I pulled out my phone and searched it. IVF clinic, reproductive services, discreet care. I copied the number, stored the site, and kept my expression neutral. She didn't know it, but something had just shifted, and not in her favor. The next day, pretending to clean out the living room shelves, I found something else. A thick spa certificate wedged between two dusty cookbooks. No occasion marked, no note, just a glossy two-person luxury voucher. When I tucked it back, I saw the second surprise. An old receipt from a restaurant in Portland, hidden inside a recipe book she never used. That wouldn't be strange if she hadn't claimed to be in Boise visiting a cousin that same weekend. That night, while she packed a suitcase, she casually said she had a last-minute trip, a cousin's wedding out of state. No big deal. Not worth dragging me along. I asked which cousin. She tossed out a name that didn't appear anywhere in our family calendar. I let it slide, watching her tuck away an evening dress and a second phone when she thought I wasn't looking. She kissed me goodbye at the airport. I smiled, waved, and turned in the opposite direction. I didn't go home. Instead, I parked myself at a quiet cafe near the freeway, ordered black coffee, opened my laptop, and built two files. One spreadsheet titled Allison Unverified, and one note file for raw observations. I uploaded both to a cloud drive locked behind layers of security. Then I set a reminder for 3 days later, the day she was supposed to come back. That same night, I opened her email. I knew her password. She never changed it. Inside were dozens of messages, some routine, some not. Buried among them was a thread labeled Our Plan. Inside, photos of a cabin on the coast, booking confirmations, and a message ending in, "Can't wait to disappear with you? S." I scrolled further. Scott. His name. His photos. The messages weren't vague or flirtatious. They were confessions, dreams, lies. She even mentioned creating a safe new identity. I wasn't surprised. I was prepared. The next morning, I called a hotel in Seattle pretending to be her brother. They confirmed a reservation for alias Arthur. I calmly asked to cancel it and had the email sent to my burner account. I saved it, one more entry in a rapidly growing folder. That same day, I met with Mason, a lawyer I used to work with, now running private cases. I didn't say her name, just told him I wanted to protect what was mine. Then I went to the bank and ordered a secondary debit card with a low limit. Told them it was for a teenager. The truth, it was the only access Allison would have left to the joint account. I moved everything else, quietly, permanently. That evening, while she was out of state smiling for another man, I sifted through our filing drawer. I found the loan documents she had buried beneath credit card bills, a $25,000 personal loan she took out 1 month earlier. No mention to me, no discussion, just done. I scanned them, backed up the files, and added the date to my spreadsheet. I called it Event 3. The plan was unfolding. She thought she was living a parallel life in secret. She thought I didn't see the drift. The missed date nights, the turned-away glances, the second phone that vibrated in the bathroom when she thought I was asleep. She underestimated me. The Allison I married could have told her that was a mistake. And now it was already too late to fix. I stayed up that night, not out of pain, at least not the kind most people expect, but because every instinct in me had shifted from husband to analyst. I didn't pace. I didn't scream. I built a case, quietly, precisely. I knew her routine. Knew she liked to leave her laptop logged in and email auto-synced. She trusted me not to snoop. That was her first mistake. By midnight, I had gone through over 200 emails. Her inbox was a mixed bag. Amazon orders, work meeting recaps, yoga class reminders. But hidden among the mundane were gold mines. Intimate messages sent through a secondary Gmail she thought I didn't know about. She'd used it for newsletters once, back when we were planning our honeymoon. I clicked through to the Sent tab and found threads with subject lines like, "Our place," "Soon," "I promise," and counting down the days. There were photos too, not the scandalous kind, the worst kind. Her and him sitting together on a deck at sunset, his hand resting casually behind her head, hers wrapped around a wine glass like she was already in the life she'd chosen, like she had already rehearsed her exit. I didn't look away. I archived everything into a private drive, marked by timestamps and categories. Then I backed that drive up to another under a different alias. I wasn't just covering myself. I was building a record, one she wouldn't see coming. By dawn, I was on the phone. Not with her, not with him, with a hotel, the place she and Scott had planned to meet, Seattle, Corner Suite, under the name Allie S. Arthur. I posed as her brother, concerned she had made the wrong reservation. The woman on the line sounded bored, but confirmed the booking. I thanked her, sighed with manufactured stress, and asked her to cancel it. "She's had a family emergency," I said. "Could you email the cancellation to her? She'll need it for her records." They did, and I intercepted it before she even woke up. Later that afternoon, I met with Mason again. I brought a small envelope. Nothing dramatic, just a copy of the prenup, a list of our joint assets, and the first 3 printouts of emails. He didn't ask many questions. Lawyers like Mason don't need the whole picture. They just need the corner pieces. He flipped through the pages, nodded once, and told me it was time to put things on paper. I returned home that evening and reviewed our banking history. Something had been itching at me for weeks now. Discrepancies, charges that didn't match her story, a wine delivery in Portland, 2 tickets to a local jazz show. That mysterious $900 spa charge marked retreat therapy. I filtered the history and finally spotted it. Withdrawals from our savings account, each one spaced perfectly apart. $9,000 in total. All signed with a digital signature I didn't recognize at first. She'd faked the checks, signed my name, moved the funds to a separate account, likely tied to Scott or one of the shell accounts I hadn't uncovered yet. I printed every transaction, every signature, every confirmation email. I stacked them in a new folder and labeled it Fraud Phase 1. That night, while our son slept upstairs, I quietly boxed up our shared documents, leaving only what was necessary in the office. I uploaded photos of everything. I made 3 digital copies of each set and 1 master drive that would live in a secure safe at my office downtown. Before going to bed, I sat next to my son's door. Just sat, listened to him breathe. There's something about betrayal that sharpens you, not into someone cruel, but into someone prepared. I knew what was coming next. She was going to come home. She'd pretend everything was fine. She'd kiss me, maybe ask about dinner, maybe tell a half lie about bad traffic or a lost luggage issue. But I wouldn't be looking at her the same. I wouldn't be waiting for an explanation. I'd already drafted the first version of the divorce papers. That weekend, I took my son out for breakfast. We went to that old diner she used to call Too Greasy, back when she still cared what we thought of her taste. I let him order pancakes with extra syrup and bacon. While he chewed, I looked him in the eyes and said calmly, "We might be making some changes soon. Maybe a new place, a smaller place, but it'll still be ours, okay?" He nodded, more interested in his milkshake than any family politics. But it mattered. The truth needed to land softly. Later that day, I drove by an apartment building near the river. Not far, just far enough. 2 bedrooms, a tiny balcony, nothing fancy. But mine. Clean slate, backup plan. That night, Allison texted me, "Boarding, miss you already." I stared at it for a long time. Then I locked my phone and went to bed. Because by the time she landed, her world would already be rewritten. She walked through the front door like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't lied about where she was, who she was with, and why she left in the first place. Her hair was curled, something she never did unless she wanted to impress someone, and her suitcase had a brand new tag from a city she never told me she visited. She smiled when she saw me, her arms wide as if we'd just come back from vacation together. I hugged her, but not like before. My arms moved out of instinct, not affection, and as she wrapped herself around me, I noticed it, the weight in her jacket pocket. The second phone was still there. We ate dinner in silence. I asked questions like, nothing was wrong. How was the wedding? Did your cousin cry? Was the weather good? She answered each one with the polished ease of someone who'd rehearsed every syllable on the plane. She even brought home a small souvenir, a keychain shaped like a lighthouse. Cheap, generic, and meant to throw me off. I smiled when she handed it to me, told her I'd keep it on my desk. After dinner, I invited her into the office, told her I needed to show her something. She followed, still humming softly, still playing the part of the devoted wife. The second she stepped in, she stopped. Her eyes landed on the wall. Everything was already there. Emails printed and pinned like trophies. Instagram screenshots showing her in cities she never told me about. Receipts taped in a clean column under the title Portland, Seattle, San Diego. A single large photo of her and Scott from the cabin, one of the ones she thought was private, centered like a centerpiece. For a second, she didn't move. She didn't blink. Then her voice cracked open. "What is this?" I didn't answer. I clicked the Bluetooth speaker on the desk. Her voice filled the room, laughing, breathless, whispering Scott's name into the phone 2 nights ago while I was home with our son. It was from the second phone, the one she thought I didn't know about. Her hand twitched toward her pocket, instinctively reaching for it. I pulled a document from the desk drawer and laid it on the table. Divorce papers, a proposed property split, and a signed acknowledgement from my lawyer that everything inside had been documented and backed up. She didn't read it. She just stared, then shook her head and said, "You're insane." That's when I reached into the other drawer and placed a flash drive next to the papers. Every password, every transfer, every message, already in the hands of the attorney, already duplicated 3 times. She stood suddenly like she meant to storm out. That's when she realized the door wouldn't open. I'd had it fitted with a remote lock last week. One click from my phone, and it would open. Until then, she wasn't going anywhere. I walked over to the shelf, pulled down the small tablet I'd mounted, and played the video. Her confirming the hotel in Seattle under a fake name. Her confirming a weekend booking for 2. I didn't look at her. I didn't have to. I just watched the screen as her betrayal played out, like a trailer for a movie she never thought I'd see. She sat down slowly, all the color drained from her face. Her fingers trembled on her lap, the second phone still buzzing quietly in her pocket. She didn't speak, and neither did I. Not until I stood and walked to the door, unlocked it with my phone, and turned back just once before leaving. "I'm not yelling," I said. "I'm just done." I left her sitting there, surrounded by her own evidence. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I drove 2 hours outside of town to a motel where I had scheduled a meeting. The man sitting in the corner booth of the motel diner looked exactly how I expected. Plain clothes, quiet posture, eyes that missed nothing. He slid a burner phone and a receipt across the table. I gave him the flash drive. Payment for 3 weeks of surveillance. He didn't ask questions, just nodded and stood. "You'll know more soon than you want to," he said. Back home, I dove back into my tracking system. I had created a full 6-month timeline of our finances. Rent, groceries, utilities. Then I overlaid her expenses, ones I hadn't authorized, ones she claimed were work-related. Spa retreats, hotel charges, airfare to places we never discussed. A total of $9,180 vanished from our savings, traced through a series of transfers made using fake checks. I added the bank statements to the court packet and filed for a financial audit request. By the end of the week, every lock on the house had been changed. I had a new security system installed with remote access and real-time monitoring, notifications sent directly to my phone. I even added biometric entry just for me and our son. Then came the twist. The name Scott finally produced results. A faculty listing from a nearby university, tenured, married. I used a contact at the university, someone who owed me a favor, to get the professor's wife's name. I sent her an anonymous envelope with every photo, every screenshot, every piece of damning truth. No threats, no explanations, just evidence. It didn't take long. 2 days later, her social media exploded. She posted everything, tagging Scott, tagging Allison, even tagging the hotel where they stayed. She posted with captions like "homewreckers and liars deserve public consequences." I checked the faculty site that evening. Scott's profile had been scrubbed. Same day, I filed for a temporary freeze on Allison's financial assets. My lawyer moved fast. With the documented fraud and the fake signatures, the judge signed it without delay. That night, while my son watched cartoons, I sat in my office and recorded a video. One take. Calm voice. Date and time stated. Timeline outlined. Everything backed up. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was preparing. Allison didn't return my calls. Not that I made many. I didn't need words anymore. Just records. The truth had already been assembled, like a court case. All that remained was watching it unfold in the real world. 2 days after I filed the financial freeze, she tried to sneak back into the house. I was working in the kitchen when the security app pinged my phone. Front door, unauthorized access. I pulled up the feed. There she was, her old key still in hand, staring at the new lock as if the house itself had turned on her. The alarm triggered after 30 seconds. The police arrived 10 minutes later. By the time I walked outside, she was pacing the porch in her heels, pretending to be shocked by the noise. I didn't speak. I let the officers do their job. They documented it as attempted unlawful entry. No arrest yet, but they handed her a fine and a warning. I let her scream across the yard while I stood calmly on the porch, our son's sleepy voice calling from the window behind me, asking what the sirens were for. The next day, she tried a new tactic. She came to my office. I was sitting in the conference room going over case notes when the receptionist buzzed in. "There's a woman in the lobby," she said hesitantly. "She's yelling." I already knew who. I walked out and found Allison standing at the front desk, shouting at the building manager. "He can't do this," she barked. "He's ruining everything." I didn't go to her. I walked past her like I didn't even know her. I gave the manager a single nod. He hit a switch and security arrived less than a minute later. She was escorted out, red-faced and wild-eyed. The building blacklisted her the same afternoon. She would never step foot past the lobby again. That night, she retaliated online. A fake Facebook page appeared. Anonymous, no profile photo, but the caption was unmistakably hers. "Smile of a psychopath." It was a photo of me taken months ago, cropped and filtered to look ominous. I saved the screenshot, reported the account, and submitted the file to Facebook's legal team. It took less than 12 hours for the page to be banned. She didn't stop. A day later, she sent me an email. The subject line was blank. The body contained one line: "You'll regret this." I didn't reply. I forwarded it to the district attorney. By the end of the week, she was called in for a formal warning. Threatening messages after being legally served documentation wasn't just inappropriate, it was reckless. I heard through my attorney that she walked into the meeting confident, but walked out white-faced and silent. That same evening, I got a call from my old banker. "You might want to know," he said, "her employer received a package." The anonymous packet I'd sent to the professor's wife had made the rounds. One of the tagged photos had included her workplace. HR got wind of it, and when they dug deeper, they found more. Resume inconsistencies, false education claims, even a fabricated consulting job she'd never held. The company quietly let her go within 48 hours. No public statement, just silence, like they wanted to erase her presence entirely. By then, I had installed nanny services at the house, not because I didn't trust myself, but because I needed someone else in the house as a witness, a neutral observer, someone to be there if things escalated. Our son liked her. Her name was Rachel, and she came with excellent reviews. She painted with him on the porch, read to him at night, and never asked personal questions. In the quiet hours after he fell asleep, I kept building the timeline. I added every event to the master folder, each date stamped, each piece of evidence linked to a legal clause or protective filing. I wanted the truth to be unshakable, not just emotional. Emotion could be denied, documents could not. That week, I called my lawyer and added a clause to the divorce motion, petitioning for monitored visitation. With the trespassing charge, the digital harassment, and the emotional instability, it wasn't hard to argue. She hadn't just betrayed the marriage, she'd made herself a legal liability. Meanwhile, Scott, the now disgraced professor, went quiet. No response to any online posts, no statement. His faculty page still blank, his LinkedIn last seen over a week ago. I imagined him packing up his books, ignoring calls, watching the fantasy unravel. I wasn't interested in revenge, but I was interested in accountability. On Saturday morning, I received a new message through my lawyer's inbox. It was from Allison, a letter, handwritten, scanned and formatted as a PDF. She wrote that she was sorry, that she never meant for it to go this far, that she was blinded by something new and stupid and temporary. She said I was a good man, said I didn't deserve this, said she hoped one day I could forgive her. I opened it, read it once, then saved it to the folder. I did not respond. Instead, I had my lawyer draft a reply. All communication must go through legal channels. That was it. 3 days later, her LinkedIn went dark. The last professional space she had clung to finally crumbled. Someone, maybe the same HR manager who fired her, had reported the false academic entries. Her degrees didn't match up. The references she listed had never heard of her. Her profile was flagged, frozen, and eventually deleted. I didn't gloat. I didn't even smile. I simply updated the timeline. Because what she was finally learning, what she had refused to understand for months, was this. I wasn't playing defense anymore. I knew she'd try again. The silence wouldn't hold. Not for someone like Allison. It happened the following week, just after the sun had barely cleared the fence line outside our kitchen window. Rachel had already arrived to watch our son while I worked from the home office. I was in the middle of answering emails when the security app pinged me again. Front yard movement. I tapped the live feed. There she was, standing at the edge of the lawn, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky, holding a shopping bag like it was an olive branch. She didn't come to the door. Not this time. Maybe she learned from the last visit. Instead, she lingered by the mailbox, staring at the window like she knew I was watching. I didn't respond, just kept the feed up in the corner of my screen while she stood there. 10 minutes later, the police arrived. The security system had automatically triggered the new proximity alert. Officers approached, asked for ID. She handed it over like she'd done nothing wrong. But when they scanned her information, the system logged it. Repeat contact, attempted proximity violation. She was issued a second fine. She didn't argue, just turned and left like nothing had happened. 2 days later, she found a different way in. Not physical, digital. An anonymous Facebook account appeared again, this time with a different name, a different photo, but the same tone. Some men pretend to be victims while hiding their true selves. The post included a cropped version of our old anniversary photo. No caption, no direct tag, just vague enough to slide past standard content filters. I took a screenshot, reported it. But this time, I didn't wait for Facebook to handle it. I forwarded the evidence directly to the local DA's office. It was her third documented offense. That afternoon, my lawyer received a notice. A formal warning had been reissued. If she attempted contact again, online or otherwise, it would move into formal prosecution territory. She was unraveling, fast. Not with fury, but desperation. Like someone slipping down a slope they once thought they could conquer, blindfolded. Then came the email. She used her real name this time. Subject line, "You win." Inside, the tone was colder than anything she'd written before. She said she hoped I was happy, that I had destroyed everything, that I had made her life unlivable. She didn't mention the affair. She didn't mention Scott. Just a string of accusations about how I'd always been waiting for the moment to punish her. I didn't reply. I didn't forward it. I printed it and filed it in the folder. Her unraveling was becoming more useful than her silence. A few nights later, I received a message from an unknown number. The text read, "She lied to all of us." Attached was a screenshot. Scott's wife again, this time sending me a clip of a voicemail Allison had left a week before. She'd tried to contact Scott after he disappeared from the faculty. She begged him to answer, said she had nothing left, that everyone was turning against her, that Aaron had taken everything and made her look like a monster. She ended the message with the words, "Please just tell me this wasn't for nothing." I listened to it twice, then deleted it. There was nothing left in her voice that resembled the woman I'd married, but she still wasn't done. The next morning, I received a formal motion from the courthouse. Allison was filing to reopen the case. She was challenging the freeze, claiming she had been coerced, that I had manipulated the process to paint her as unstable. Her lawyers submitted character statements, all from friends of hers I hadn't spoken to in months, people who'd only heard her version of events. My attorney wasn't concerned. "We've got documentation for every claim," she said. "They're throwing darts in the dark." And she was right. The judge reviewed the motion and denied it within 72 hours. Insufficient evidence. Motion denied. Assets remain frozen. It wasn't just a victory. It was a lock snapping shut. Legally, publicly, permanently. That night, I did something I hadn't planned. I opened a blank document on my laptop and started writing. Not for court, not for my lawyer, but for myself. I called it Surviving Betrayal. Just 3 words at the top of the page. A working title. At first, it was just a collection of thoughts. Fragments, dates, decisions. But the more I wrote, the more it took shape. Not a journal, not a rant, a roadmap. I laid out how I'd gathered evidence, what steps I'd taken, which red flags I'd ignored early on. I kept it anonymous, no names, no locations, just the facts. Then I uploaded it to a blog. I didn't think anyone would read it, but they did. By the next morning, it had been shared on a few niche forums, then picked up by a subreddit for divorce support. Within a week, I was getting messages from people across the country, men and women, people thanking me for the clarity, for the control, for showing that not every betrayal has to end in ruin. That's when the journalists came knocking. I declined most of them. I didn't want my name out there, not yet. But one reached out with sincerity, asking if I'd contribute to a podcast series they were building. It was called Men's Voices. The focus was on emotional abuse and manipulation in marriage. Not shouting, not scandal, just truth. I sent in an audio statement, voice disguised, just 15 minutes, but it struck a nerve. The episode aired the following week, and Allison heard it. She sent a letter, not through email, a real one, postmarked and scrawled in handwriting that used to decorate the margins of our anniversary cards. She didn't ask to come back. She didn't deny anything. She simply said, "I see now what I did. I'm sorry, you didn't deserve any of it." I read it once, then scanned it, saved it to the archive. My reply was simple. Through my lawyer, I had a certified letter sent stating all communication must go through legal channels. No more loopholes. No more emotional whiplash. Around the same time, her last professional lifeline crumbled. She'd been applying for work under the same name, listing achievements that were easily disproven. One of her resumes claimed she graduated with honors from a university she'd never attended. Someone flagged it. It went viral in a very specific HR circle. The fallout spread fast. Her professional image disintegrated. LinkedIn frozen. Emails bounced. Her name quietly added to a growing list of flagged applicants inside corporate circles. She had become radioactive. Not because I exposed her, but because her lies finally ran out of road. There's a moment in every unraveling when the person behind the mask stops pretending they wore it for protection and admits they wore it to manipulate. Allison finally reached that moment the day she sent a message through her old friend Lindsay, a woman I hadn't spoken to since our engagement party. The message wasn't apologetic. It wasn't even veiled. It was a threat disguised as nostalgia. Lindsay said Allison wanted to talk in person, to clear the air, and make peace for the sake of the family. She emphasized how hard this had all been for Allison, how her life had been shattered, how maybe there was fault on both sides. I didn't respond to Lindsay. I copied the message, time-stamped it, filed it in the legal archive, and blocked her number. Because there was no shared fault. There was fraud, there was betrayal, there were forged signatures, unauthorized withdrawals, manipulation, and psychological abuse, disguised as emotional distance. This wasn't about bitterness. It was about reality, and I had the records to prove it. Allison didn't try again directly. Not for a while. Instead, she circled. She posted online under new accounts. Soft focus photos, poetic captions, quotes about growth after chaos, and the pain of being misunderstood. Subtle swipes, all designed to spark curiosity, to paint herself as the victim in a story that no longer accepted her narration. It didn't work. People weren't buying it anymore. She had become a cautionary tale in her own echo chamber. Around this time, Surviving Betrayal, the anonymous blog I had started, began to draw more serious attention. One post I wrote, a clinical breakdown of how to prepare documentation before a spouse attempts financial misdirection, was shared by a law professor. Then a local news station contacted me through the contact form. They were doing a series on digital infidelity and financial abuse in modern marriages. I still didn't use my real name, but I gave them a polished quote. Control doesn't always look like shouting. Sometimes it looks like hiding passwords and rewriting truths. It aired during the late evening segment. I never mentioned Allison, never needed to. The comments section lit up with people recognizing the patterns in their own lives. And still, Allison circled. I heard through my lawyer that she attempted to apply for a position out of state, using a new name format, adding a middle initial, trimming her resume. But it didn't hold. Her digital footprint followed her. Screenshots surfaced. The fake credentials were flagged again. Within days, the offer was rescinded. Meanwhile, my life was quiet, cleaner. Our son adjusted better than I expected. Kids sense tension long before they understand it. With Allison gone, the air in our home felt different, lighter, less brittle. Rachel stayed on as a part-time nanny. She became a stable presence, someone he looked forward to seeing every day. When he asked about his mom, I told him what was age-appropriate. She's living in another place right now. She needs time. He never asked more than that. I began taking him out more. Trips to the park, weekend markets, small hiking trails. We cooked together on Sundays, even if it meant burning pancakes half the time. He'd laugh and I'd let him, because this wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about rebuilding. The court proceedings finally reached a new stage in early fall. My attorney filed the final set of exhibits, and we received a tentative court date. It wasn't just about the divorce anymore. It was about financial recovery, custody terms, and a no-contact order that would finally solidify the wall I'd spent months building. That's when she showed up at the daycare. Not inside. She wasn't allowed near the building, but across the street, in her car. She parked under a tree, windows down, pretending to scroll through her phone. But she wasn't fooling anyone. One of the staff recognized her immediately and called me. By the time I got there, she had already driven off. I didn't chase her. I didn't need to. We pulled the security footage and filed the report. My lawyer added it to the file. The judge approved an emergency order within 24 hours. She was officially barred from coming within 200 yards of our son's school, my home, or my office. That same night, she tried again, this time slipping a handwritten letter into Rachel's car windshield. A last-ditch move. Sloppy. The letter wasn't emotional, it was venom. A tirade about how I'd turned our friends against her, how I'd made her a ghost, how she hoped I'd remember the version of her before all this. I read it once, then filed it away. By then, my lawyer and I had compiled over 170 pages of chronological evidence. Emails, bank statements, texts, photos, audio files, certified letters, and surveillance timestamps. We called it The Record, and it was airtight. Around this time, I got a message from a campaign group I'd been following. Men's Advocacy Law Alliance. A lawyer I'd spoken to early on had passed along my blog. They invited me to speak at a private event. Just a panel, anonymous if I preferred. I agreed. When I stood in that room, 30 men, some older, some younger, I didn't tell a sob story. I laid out strategy, preparation, what to do when trust breaks and documentation becomes your only shield. Some took notes. One guy cried. Another hugged me after and said, "You just described my marriage and my divorce." It wasn't healing, but it was purpose. Afterward, I updated the blog. I added a section on how to rebuild, financially, emotionally, legally. One line stood out. It's not revenge to defend your future. It's self-respect. That post spread faster than any before it. A podcast called Divorce Truths reached out. I declined the invite, but gave them permission to read the post on air. Allison heard it. She sent one final letter. Not to me this time, but to the court. In it, she asked for leniency, claimed she was in emotional distress, that she had made regrettable choices, and that the public exposure was causing irreparable harm. She didn't contest the facts. She couldn't, but she begged the judge to seal the final records, to prevent future employers from seeing the public filings. The irony wasn't lost on me. She didn't mind when it was me being ruined. Now that the mirror was turned, she was finally afraid. The judge reviewed it. Decision pending. But I wasn't waiting for it. I had already started packing. Not from fear, from freedom. 3 months later, I stood on a dock at the edge of Payette Lake. The water flat and silver, early morning mist curling like breath around the boats moored nearby. McCall, Idaho wasn't where I thought I'd end up, but it felt right. Quiet, remote. The kind of town where people remember your dog's name before they ask what you do for work. I hadn't come here to disappear. I'd come here to begin again. The house I rented was modest. 2 bedrooms, pale wood siding, a wraparound porch that creaked when the wind blew just right. My son loved it. He claimed the smaller room instantly and named the lake-facing porch swing his thinking spot. Every evening after dinner, we'd sit there and watch the sun melt behind the trees. I'd never seen him so calm, so free. We built things together, a bird feeder, a bench for the fire pit. But the gazebo was our biggest project, a real one. I ordered the lumber from a local mill, spent weekends sanding planks and sketching angles on napkins. He helped me hammer in nails with more enthusiasm than accuracy, and I let him make mistakes. I needed that too, to rebuild something solid with my hands. Something that wouldn't fall apart just because someone stopped pretending to love it. One Saturday, while buying paint at a hardware store, I met Abigail. She worked there part-time while finishing a graduate degree in environmental science. She laughed easily, called me out for mispronouncing linseed oil, and carried herself like someone who'd been through storms and still kept the windows open. We ran into each other again at a lakeside cleanup event, picking plastic from cattails and exchanging half-hearted jokes about who'd found the strangest piece of trash. She asked if I liked jazz. I said I used to. She invited me to a festival in town. I said yes. It wasn't a date, not at first, but we talked for hours under paper lanterns strung between pine trunks, her face lit by stage lights and flickering bug zappers. She never asked about Allison. I never mentioned the past. But there was something in the way she listened. No flinching, no pity, just space. We started going on walks, then dinners. Then one afternoon, she asked about my son. I didn't hesitate. The 3 of us went on a picnic a week later. He liked her. That mattered more than anything. She taught him how to skim rocks better than I ever could. That night, he asked if she'd be around next weekend too. She was, and the weekend after that. One evening on the boat I'd rented for the summer, we drifted near the center of the lake, the shoreline a blur of golden trees in distant dock lights. Abigail sat beside me, legs tucked beneath her, holding a chipped mug of hot cider. I stared out at the water, then said it, quiet, unforced. I think I'm ready not to be afraid anymore. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. She just placed her hand on mine, the silence between us softer than anything I'd known in years. Later that month, I hosted a dinner for a few neighbors. Nothing fancy. Grilled salmon, corn, fire pit s'mores. Abigail came early to help set the table. My son chased fireflies barefoot. One of the neighbors asked if we'd moved from Boise. I said yes. No one pressed for more. That same week, Allison tried to reach out again. A letter, unmarked envelope. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. I didn't open it. I stared at it for a long time. Then I walked out back, opened the wood stove, and dropped it in. The flame licked the paper in silence. I filed the incident with my attorney, requested a federal no-contact order. We submitted the past records, the threats, the letters, everything. The court granted it, permanent. I updated the timeline one last time, then closed the file. Not out of triumph, but necessity. The chapter wasn't just finished. It had no pages left to write. 1 week later, I stood on the porch watching Abigail and my son draw chalk galaxies on the path that curved toward the lake. She looked up, smiled, and asked if I wanted to add a planet. I took the chalk, crouched beside them, and drew a ringed moon. A new orbit, one I chose. One not built on lies or second phones or stolen funds. Not a fantasy, just a life. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.